Good day, Salem. This is William Legault from Salem Digest, and once again, it's an election season here in Salem, Massachusetts. So I'm here in the studios at Salem XS Television on 285 Derby Street with Domingo Dominguez. Now, we spoke to Domingo, a little less than a year ago during the municipal elections. You were re-elected fourth term? Third term.
Yeah.
As councilor at large.
Correct.
And now you've decided you're going to try to take a step up and move on to the state legislature with the vacancy created by Paul Tucker running for district attorney. So we got some questions for you, Domingo. How you doing? Are you ready for them?
Well, I'm doing great. I want to thank you, first of all, for this great opportunity. Like always, you're doing a great job communicating to people about the issue that pertaining to election time. Like you say, I'm running for a state rep and looking forward for your questions.
First off, I'm gonna compliment that tie and that handkerchief. Whoever dresses you in the morning did a good job today. I like that tie. I might have to look for one like that.
Well,
I don't wear them too often, but
you can borrow from me. I don't mind.
Well, I don't know. That's kind of an intimate thing, borrowing a man's tie. All righty, we're going to jump right into the questions, if you don't mind, Counselor.
Okay.
State legislature. It's a big step. It's a big change from the intimate setting of a local city council, 11 people to 400 and something, I think. What, in your experience, prepares you to work closely and in a collaborative effort with such a large and diverse body? Well, I use the term diverse loosely, I think, of elected representatives.
You're certainly right, and I think my work on the city council has always been collaborative. I always consult with my fellow colleagues on every of the legislation that comes from the city council. In my last 5 years as a city councilor at large, that's the methodology that I've been using, and I'm trying to use the same one if I get elected to the State House. I will continue to emphasize on my fellow legislators and emphasizing on the leadership to try to get the bill passed, bill that will in a way affect or benefit the city of Salem, which is my constituency that I will represent. I don't think that the side of the body of the House will have any impact on any success that I will have as a state rep. As a matter of fact, I think that it also will help because it will give me more opportunity to chat with different representatives from different parts of the Commonwealth. I had the opportunity to meet with so many of them in the past in my currently job as a city councilor, but not only as a city councilor, but as a community activist. I've been involved in the whole North Shore area as a president of the Latino Business Association, and I also have the opportunity to work in a company named IDT as a regional sales manager. So I'm very, very familiar with most of the leaders among the Commonwealth, and I'm looking forward to, if I get elected, to continue to create or make that relationship more stronger. I am a people person, and I'm looking forward to continue to build a strong relationship with people and continue to do so at the state level if I get elected.
Right, so as you said, and as we both touched on it, government is a collaborative effort. I mean, you have to work together to get things done. It gets a little harder these days, it seems, at every level than it used to. Now, in your previous terms, you were part of sort of an unofficial coalition of councilors. Yourself, Councilor Dibble from Ward 7, and Councilor Flynn from Ward 4. You guys seem to work together a lot.
Yeah.
And the other side of the council, was a larger group, and you guys sort of had to work against that. Now this year, suddenly you don't have your two collaborators basically alongside of you. Have you found it more difficult this year to work with the councilors?
I had to tell you that I'm capable to work with both sides. I proved that in the past, even though I don't agree with many of the issues that happened in front of me in the past. But if you see my record on voting, I voted once in one side, I voted in the other side because I looked the issue one by one. I tend not to alienate in one side only. I like to be seeing both sides, and if the issue make common sense and is for the betterment of the majority of the people, I align with that. My records say that I'm more likely to be aligned with the people mind instead of any side. Happened that in the past, like you mentioned, that for the three of my former colleagues and I can tend to agree in many of the issues that come in front of us. But that doesn't say that we was already all 100% agree on everything. We agree to disagree, and when we agree, fine, but when we disagree, we continue to be the same legislature that people elected us to. And that's what happened right now. I work fine with the group that is now in City Council, and I'm looking forward to continue to strengthen that relationship more and more and more.
All right, very good. But have you found it easier or a little more difficult to work with your fellow councilors this year without having your two, well, I'll just say your amigos, without having your other two amigos alongside you?
Yeah, no, I feel the same. I feel the same. I do my work in the City Council in a very serious way, in a way that I don't take anything personal. I know that, like I say before, I don't have to agree with everyone, and not everyone had to agree with me. So it is what it is. We're working for the same goal. I think regardless of what side you either one take, at the end of the day, the result is to the betterment of the city of Salem. So I'm happy the way it is, and I feel it's not different to me.
So you've been out knocking on doors. I've seen some signs up. They're starting. I haven't seen a lot of signs in downtown, in the areas surrounding the downtown, but I've seen some signs up. We have a third candidate in there. How are you feeling about it right now?
Well, I feel very positive. The way that I define this race is that it be a win-win situation, because I think the two other candidates are very, very, I think, beneficial. They bring a lot to the table, and whoever wins, I think Salem going to win, because we're going to have a representation that will really care about the people of Salem. My campaign obviously have a strategy, and I think we have put that strategy in place. We plan to be visible, like always. As you might see my campaign from previous campaign, I try to be very visible and very active. I promise the people of Salem to work hard, and that's what I do in all campaigns. So I'm working very hard. I make sure that everyone know who I am, that everyone listen what is my platform, but most importantly, that I listen to them and address whatever concern they have, and try to bring some solution to the issue that they mentioned to me.
All right, so it's an interesting election. We've not had a lot of representatives of color at any level of Salem government over the years, and right now we have two councilors of color. You're a Latino, and Councilor McLean, of course, is black, which is not quite sure if it's a first on the Salem City Council. We might have
believe so.
We might have had two Latinos in the past, or
Yeah,
perhaps?
yeah, we had two Latinos in the past.
Yes. So, but if you're elected, if any of the three are elected, will be the first representative of color for Salem and the State House. Is that something you give any real thought to, or is it just what it is?
I think that's going to be a great opportunity for the people of Salem once again make history. The fact that we are a very diverse city make us realize that we had to have that diversification at the local and the state level and any other level. So having a Latino or an African American being the first elected state representative is going to be history, and I think it's going to be beneficial. It's going to be beneficial because it's going to help address and project who we are in the Commonwealth. We are a diverse state, but also a diverse city, and Salem has been a champion on that. So being the first on the equation would be great. I feel very honored to be one of the candidates, and I feel that, to me, it is a privilege to serve locally, but at the state level even greater. And having in the past such a great representation on the currently state rep, Paul Tokers, and the rest of the representatives that passed is even greater. There's big shoes to feed, and I think that having a Latino is going to be beneficial.
You mentioned Representative Tucker, again, who's trying to move on to district attorney. I feel that he actually has set a pretty high bar in a couple of ways for a state representative of Salem, and it follows right along with what Senator Lovely has done. They're probably, arguably, more accessible than any state rep in the area. It's certainly more accessible than any state rep in Salem has been in a long time. What are your thoughts on that, and on maintaining that accessibility? Because it takes time, and those two are everywhere.
Completely agree with you, and I had the opportunity to work and talk to each one of them in a very frequent basis. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to speak with Senator John Lovely, and I was mentioning her the same. I think that whoever get the position is going to be a big shoes to feed. Happened that, you know, when you are a local elected official, you also have your own capacity to work. And I think I feel in my own way, I feel that I've been very accessible, and I continue to be so. And if I get elected, I will know exactly that the people of Salem deserve a representation, no less than what Paul Tucker have been done and Senator John Lovely. I'm planning to join effort with Senator John Lovely if I get elected, and try to build that team, strong team that has been in the past, to make it stronger, with different perspective, with different maybe touch, but at the end of the day, I think that we're going to bring the same result. Strong representation to represent all the people of Salem that deserve a great representation.
One of the more difficult things, I think, for a state representative, anybody in the legislature, whether it be the House of Representatives or the Senate, is the fact that it's a very leadership-heavy legislative body, in that those leaders truly lead. You either go along with what the leadership wants, or you're going to have trouble representing. It's not a go-along to get-along culture, but parts of it are. How are you going to handle a situation where the leadership really wants you to go along with something that you object to? That's where the collaboration comes in.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I happen to, like I say, to know some of the leaders at the state level, and happen to, in some way deal with some of the the issue that they project. And you're right, the leadership on the state level is very, very tight, very strong. You have to, first of all, be willing to collaborate in one another group. But I also think that, bringing your own independence doesn't matter how and what body you are. And I have proved that I'm not afraid of any leadership or any ideology when it's come to represent Salem, the people of Salem. I'm looking forward to, because I think that will giving me a challenge, but also will giving me a different perspective that's going to help me to advance. And I have proved, like I said before, that I'm willing to do the work at that level. I think one of the things that you need to know is that you need to study the issue in a deeply way, so you can formulate your decision to who you align with. But I have proved that I can work with anyone in any capacity.
Alrighty, let's move on to question 2. Even though there were like 9 questions involved in question 1 there, that's how I get sneaky like that. The legislature, or should the legislature, be looking at more COVID relief funding for the many small and medium-sized businesses in Massachusetts that are still struggling to recover from a pandemic that just doesn't seem to want to end? I mean, there were a lot of smaller restaurants in Salem, but not just restaurants, retails. We've got a brewery, we've got a cider maker, we've got a distillery, and they managed to survive the pandemic. and some of them did better than anticipated, but there's still problems. Any thoughts on that? Should we bring more funds in?
I would agree with you. I agree that many small and medium-sized businesses in Massachusetts are still struggling. And I think that the pandemic is been cruel. I firmly believe that Massachusetts have not distributed all of the funds from the federal government. I think that these funds should be relieved to help small and medium businesses to alleviate their situation. The fact that they've been so affected by the pandemic, still we would say maybe a reflection of the effect at the beginning to now. We've seen some businesses closing. We've seen some businesses shorted on one of the biggest effects of the pandemic, which is personnel. I think that you heard last night in the budget discussion that even the city of Salem, even government, not only private, but public and big corporations are affected by the impact of COVID by not having the personnel that they need. So the shortage on personnel is one of the effects. But also in the small and medium-sized businesses, the loss of the clientele that never come back still in effect. I think that we are still in the pandemic. The pandemic haven't gone yet, and the effect that we seen still to create some very strong issues, especially for the small and medium-sized businesses. I happen to be a former business owner, and like I mentioned to you in my previous comment, president of the North Shore Latino Business Association, and I'm very close with the Latino community, with the Latino businesses community among the North Shore, and I visit some of them. Some of them are good friends of mine, and they had the opportunity to express me how hard it is to them. So I think that we need to have those funds released to those small and medium-sized businesses so they can recuperate from this tragic pandemic.
One of the things that I think that helped the businesses very much were the PPE loans, the payroll loans, which basically allowed a business to retain an employee, to keep an employee for a period of time with the money from that loan. Is that something that that you think is realistic moving forward? Should a continuation of those PPE loans be implemented to help businesses pay for somebody's help? 'Cause part of the reason that everybody's having trouble finding help, as you heard in the budget meeting at the City Council last night, is they want to be paid more, especially in the restaurant and in the hospitality industry. Wages have been stagnant for a long time. Do you think that's something that should look at?
Absolutely. I think we need to do more in that regard. And I think we need to make sure that everyone get those PPE help and make it easy so the small businesses, especially the minorities-owned businesses, can get access to those funds. In the past, I hear a lot of small businesses, not very well organized, that they have some issue, some difficulty to get to those funds, to get the help that they deserve in that regard. So I'm pro that big time, but I wanted to see that program be more accessible for everyone as a whole. You mentioned the restaurant industry, which is one of the industry that I think was very, very affected. I have a friend who closed some of the restaurants because they cannot afford to continue to pay for the operation costs, meaning by that the salaries for the employee, and also compete with other industry that might be paying more to the employee. So we need to raise the salary, and I think now with the inflation that we're facing nationwide, I think that's also going to make it harder for them to continue to compete and bring the good personnel that they need.
All right, very good, very good. So we're going to move on, but we'll probably kind of wander back into that, I think, before all is said and done. That's because now this question here, this The Massachusetts fiscal year 2023 is going to come, the budget's going to come in at just a shade under $50 billion. That staggers my mind. It is that a state government is a $50 billion business. But the $188 million for the city staggers my mind just as much, absolutely. But in view of the unexpected, and I use quotation marks in that, higher tax revenues this year that were brought in, and the impressive budget surplus, which I'm pretty sure is just under $2 billion. Should the legislature be looking for further relief, not only for the businesses, but for the taxpayers themselves? And should every effort be made to continue to build the surplus, or should we use it?
Absolutely. Revenue that will fund the fiscal year 2023 budget should be certainly relieved to help those cities and towns that are struggling on the state, across the state and everywhere. I firmly believe that the state should always be looking to establish a rainy day funds from hard tax revenue. However, the reality is going to be, it's not easy. I know we have some challenge. We also seen here locally, recently, the Chapter 70 money is being cut, reduced, and that's leave a big hole in the fiscal year FY 2023. That is very, very hard, and I know, in fact, that is not only pertaining to Salem, it's across the state. Cities and towns are suffering, and we need to bring some relief. I also think that by having that, we alleviate the tax, the hard tax for the cities and towns.
Now remind me, what does Chapter 70 cover?
Chapter 70 cover the school.
Oh, the school, sure, okay, yeah,
school.
all right, thank you.
So basically, we have a read-through with the mayor when that information come across, and we sadly, get that new from other cities and towns. We see like 3.5 million. We only receive 100 and something, and that's make a big, big impact in budget. Very fortunate enough that the mayor find her way to balance the budget this year, but we don't know what's going to happen in the other year to come, and I think that we need to find a solution for that. If I get elected at the state level, I'm going to be focusing on see what can we do to alleviate that situation.
Well, it's interesting that over the years, as the tax rate has gone up and the revenue brought in from taxes has increased, with, of course, the COVID period being an aberration there. Here we are with a record surplus, record tax revenues, and the Chapter 70 funding, as you said, is shrinking, which I wasn't aware of that, but also the Chapter 90 funding over the years has gradually shrunk every year, which goes to improving roadways, and it makes it more difficult. This governor at least releases these funds on time, where the previous governor didn't do that. Do you think that the way Chapter 70 and 90 operate, is it fair to the municipal entities?
No, I think that we need to look at it. I think it is time for us to revise and make sure that we provide the relief funds for cities and towns that need the most. Salem is one of them. I think we need to make sure that at the state level, let whoever make decision on that regard, that we need some attention and we need some funds to continue to function well. We're a gateway city. We have so many needs in Salem that need to be addressed.
So let's stick on the budget for a little bit, especially since while we're taping this, it is budget season here in Salem.
Yeah.
Salem gets their budget. You guys got your budget books last week. Mm-hmm. You hired a team of horses to drag it out of City Hall because it's like that big. You're going to spend a whole month going through it as best you can, discussing it, voting on it. You voted on a bunch of areas on the budget last night and approved to send them to the council. Salem gets its budget in at the end of the month every year, ready for the July season. if you guys were to vote against that budget, let's just say you built a coalition and you were to vote against that budget, then Salem basically, technically would shut down on the 1st of July. And you'd have to use a supplemental budget to run the city until the budget is improved. That seems to be the way they do business up on Capitol Hill at the State House. Every year, the budget is late, doesn't get approved on time. So then they have to approve billions of dollars for a supplemental budget to run the state in the interim, which has to cost more money in the end. How do you see you approaching this issue with the State House and this habit of dickering with the governor, fighting with the governor, and not having the budget in on time? Is that good government?
I think that practice is not good. I don't think it's good. It will, like you say, make the state spend more money, and as a result, the taxpayer had to pay the bill. I feel that we had to be proactive at the state level, try to bring that budget in an early moment, so give enough time for the legislators to make their decision and vote either way they wanted to vote, and not make the taxpayer pay the expense of any, I think, delayed that they use. We don't know the reason why, but I'm not in favor to continue that practice. I think that practice is not normal, not good.
Well, some have said that that's the result of having a Democratic-leaning legislature and a Republican governor, and the governor uses the budget season to make political hay to make his points. And that's the way politics works. But there's a little of that on the legislative side, too.
Yeah, in my own opinion, to me, the political bipartisan ideology on money matter, thing that's going to really affect quality of life of people, need to be put aside. I think that we need to focus on delivering good results to the people. And in that regard, I always say that I don't think like a traditional politics. In that regard, I like to see things done. I like to see results. I like to see that we take care of the people who we represent. I've been putting that in front of me in all my life, especially now as a city councilor. And going back to the question you asked me at the beginning, that's one thing that I discussed with close friends in the city council when I used to be with them, and they know and they knew that I'm not the type of person to go with one side just because it's a convenience political wise. I think that I've been taken the hard road in terms of making a decision that doesn't really benefit you in my campaign line. So I'm through that. I try to repeat that and do that at the state level too.
So one of the issues that seems to be holding the budget up this year, or it's been a wrench thrown into the budget works, is the issue of issuing driver's licenses to the illegal or undocumented aliens. That is sort of a third rail subject across the country. A lot of people don't want to touch that. Massachusetts always seems to be willing to touch those sorts of issues far before other states. So the governor has opposed that. But he doesn't want to see that, while the legislature, of course, backs that. You have any thoughts on these and how it applies to voting rights?
I had to say once again that human need has faces, and we need to address it. I mean, it's not a matter of political parties or a group of people. I think it's a matter of what is the result that we're going to deliver to those needs that those humans have. In this particular time, where we see so many need on new immigrants that in some cases come to produce and help build this state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that have family to go to school, that wanted to see and bring food to their table. So those needs need to be addressed, regardless of the status of the human. So I'm in big favor of providing the license to the undocumented, because that will provide many results, many solutions on many issues. One of them is the mobility. People without license, they cannot move, so they cannot have a job, and they cannot maybe fix their status. So they need to have those type of tools so they can advance. The other one, I think, is the family. We need to make sure that we look through the eyes of a parent. If I have my kids, but I'm undocumented, they born here in the United States, and they go to school, but I cannot provide for them, how can they can advance? So I think in synthesis, helping this need will help us in the long run. Will help the United States in the long run, because those people are going to be willing to pay taxes. Those people are going to be willing to help their kids to advance to school. And those kids, when they grow up, when they go to college, they're going to be the professionals that are going to give back to the country.
So when I ask this question, I use both terms. I use the illegal alien term, and I use the undocumented immigrant term. And that's a game of semantics, but it's a game that a lot of people play. You either come down on one side, where they use their term illegal alien, where they use the term undocumented immigrant. It's the same definition. It's two different terms, but one is a little stronger than others. Massachusetts, I don't believe, politically uses that term in any of their laws or any of their paperwork. How do you feel about the possibility of these undocumented immigrants with licenses voting? Do you think that is the future? If we don't have an accelerated citizenship program, which I believe we should have, we should accelerate it.
Yeah, I agree.
It should be faster, it should be easier. If you stay out of trouble, you shouldn't have any trouble getting your citizenship. What do you say to those that would look at you and argue that you're just giving the illegal alien the opportunity to vote?
Yeah, I had to say that we had to make sure that we have a immigration reform. Make sure that we legalize many of the undocumented or illegal immigrants that we have. I see in some other states maybe leaning to allow the undocumented, or not only undocumented, the resident aliens, not citizens, resident aliens, to vote at the local level. New York, for example, I got a friend who happened to be a former city councilor for one of the districts, who produced an ordinance allowing the green card holders to vote in a local election, and I think that passed. I don't think that's the case here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has been so proactive in the past that I think that before that happened, we might have something in place that will help.
Are there no communities in Mass? Cambridge doesn't do that? I'm wondering. I don't know.
I'm not aware. I don't think that we have
Yeah.
any community here in Massachusetts yet. I would like to, if I get elected, to, do some research and meet with some of my colleagues in that regard and see what can we maybe produce in that regard. I'm 100% in helping humans regardless of their status. And I think that if we can put together a plan to help this group of people, will be helpful.
So if we were to create a program to make it easier to become a resident alien, is it possible to go from undocumented immigrant to resident alien? Is there a process for that?
That's why we're waiting for the reform.
Yeah, I don't think there is. That has to start outside the country.
Yeah, you have to start outside the country, or you have to be admitted to the United States legally with a visa or some type of documentation that allow you to apply for the process and stay here in the United States. That's part of the immigration law that is in place, and it's been like that for many years.
So, as we were talking about earlier, COVID relief and possible PPE, I said we would probably come back to that. This plays into that also. You have a lot of these businesses that do hire the undocumented immigrants, landscapers, painting contractors, contractors of all kinds. It's not unusual to go up to Home Depot year-round, and there's a group of guys just sitting there waiting for somebody to come along and give them work that they're paying cash. So that's part of the underground economy. Do you see a way to possibly change that process so that is the resident alien process a way to change that?
We have to. I think the United States have to find a solution for that. And I see how the federal government is trying. Even the President Biden, I think that he promised in his campaign to come with some type of immigration reform, which allowed those undocumented people who are here, I think 16 point something millions undocumented immigrants that are here in the United States to be legalized and start a new process. I think by doing that, it will help the economy, but also will help make sure that we establish a very clear path so everybody can come through. I had to say that I came to the United States in 1984. I'm very fortunate that my family was here before they came, legally speaking, and they
Your family came
to the United States
legally?
Before legally.
Legally, okay.
And they went through the process, and they required me to come by in my early days. That's the process. That's the normal process. That's the process that the majority of the new immigrants, not only from Dominican Republic but from everywhere, had to go through. And I think that's the right channel. And I think that's what make the immigration process to be unique, and we need to follow. Everybody needs to follow it. Now we're facing I think some people call it illegal way to entrance, but maybe a way to come without any documentation, which is I not applaud anybody who broke the law. I think that we, especially here in the United States, we put law in place so people can follow. I don't think that anyone had to come from anywhere in the earth to come to the United States and try to break the law, and we have to applaud that. We had to make sure that everybody comes from the channel. But facing reality, now we have people here. Let's face that. Let's see what solution we're going to have. And I hear a lot of people saying that the immigration reform that's the most needed one, and I think we solve the problem. I wanted to say also clearly, because I see both sides, like I mentioned to you. I know that people who help build this nation by paying taxes and by generations, seeing that any newcomers, whoever come, sometimes benefit from the effort that they already made, which is true. I think that's why I also say to the other side, when I say to the other side, to the undocumented people, we have to respect that this country is being built by so much sacrifice, and we all had to follow the same channel that everybody.
It's always been that way. Yeah. We've always had the undocumented, whatever. The Chinese building the railroad. It's always been that way. Even today, a lot of the undocumented have gotten Social Security numbers, which may not be legitimate, and they're paying taxes. And the government knows they're paying taxes, but where's that money? It's, of course, some of them aren't. So a lot of these workers are out there. Some are being paid cash and not paying taxes, and that's shame on the employer also. And if there's going to be punishment, the punishment has to be even-handed. A faster track to citizenship is one cure, but it has to be done federally. The state can take some steps, but not too many. We circled back to COVID a little bit. Do you feel that COVID affected the Latino community in Salem any greater than it did the non-Latino community?
I have to say that, first of all, that I think the mayor with the staff having deal with COVID very good. And I commend her. I even told to her in a private conversation that I was impressed by the way she handled it for the most part. However, I think like in any communities, there are groups of people who might be not in the same level of receiving the help that we provide, and I think the Latino community are one of them here in Salem. And one of the reasons is why, because its communications varies, sometimes create an issue there. I try my best to communicate the most I can with the community of the Latino community abroad, because I'm one of them, I speak the language. And I hear from them the frustration that they was not really took advantage of the help that the local government was providing.
Should we have provided a vaccination station in the Point?
I think so.
Did we? We didn't.
No, we did not.
We did, but we should have done that. I agree.
I agree.
I was
completely
kind of surprised that we didn't.
It's one thing that we need to make sure that we have one of the dense population in Salem, down the Point. So we had to look at it from that perspective. Whatever we do at the citywide level, we need to make sure that we address that area with a different, not because they're different, but communication is different over there. And maybe the way they function on a daily basis might be a little bit different. So we need to try to address those needs. We need to go to them and try to fulfill their needs.
Well, I may be wrong, and you feel free to correct me. Especially amongst the more recent Latino arrivals, there seems to be a little bit of distrust of government, just a little bit. Maybe they don't trust the police as much. They don't look at the police as reliable, and they look at government the same way. Especially since it's mostly non-Latinos that are representative of the government. Is that as much of an issue as I think it is down there?
It is, and I don't say it's only pertaining to the Point or to the Latino community. I think it's nationwide. I think that the past administration helped emphasize into that more, and I think people are more, more into not to trust the government because of what happened in the last 4 years, and now where we are right now. And the Latino community is not assent to that. I think that's a reality over there.
How would you address that from the legislature? What can you do? What would you want to do as a state legislature to try to bring not just the Latino community, the undocumented community, into the process? Make them aware of it and to create some trust?
It's a good question, but I think one of the things that will help is more communication, which is never too much, and education, more education. We have a lot of education, a lot of good programs among the Latino community from different organizations, but we need to do more. We need to do more. We need to make sure that we continue increasing the effort in educating more the Latino population.
All right, let's delve into housing a little, which we did last year when you were here for your council campaign. Obviously an ongoing issue. It's crazy. Affordable housing is not affordable. The North Shore CDC, it's wonderful things that they do, but their housing is not truly affordable. Salem Housing Authority, separate entity, probably it is income-based, but again, it's not affordable. It's based on that AMI, which is more of a federal thing than it is a state thing. Any thoughts on how we can fix that? Right now the trend is toward this public-private partnership for housing, which a lot of people mistrust. Any thoughts on what can be done?
No, you say it. I mean, housing is a very strong issue that still, and have, like I mentioned before, have a human face. And we see how increasingly it's going throughout the years. The more we advance, the more need we have for real affordable housing. You say it right, we don't have a real affordable housing, and that was my point from day one when I was very strongly and passionate, against some of the tools that were proposed at that moment, because I didn't see any affordability component that really fit the needs of the people of Salem. And I think that's where we miss for the most part. We miss in that we using or some using the affordable language, but in reality, there's not affordability components there that really fit the need. So
It's not there.
no. So we need to really be true to the term affordability and try to fix it.
Let's look at that fire that just happened on Hancock Street, which you guys brought up in the meeting when you were going over to both the police and the fire department's budget. You had a situation there in a building, in a home, a triple-decker, with a long, bad reputation as a troublesome home. Inspectors, fire departments, police calls, all of that. And that's the reality of the situation. But the other side of that coin, the other side of that reality is that building was providing truly affordable housing
Yes.
for people that can't afford to live on their own in Salem, and people that even had jobs. What was being done in that building was illegal, but at the same time it was providing
Need.
filling a critical need. Now that building's gone.
Yeah.
What's going to come up? What's going to come up? It's not going to be the same situation there. Where do those people go? How do we handle that?
That's very difficult answer that I don't have the answer. I wish I can have it, and I think that's probably what we need to focus on.
That's the best answer you've given today. It is.
I think that we need to focus in find what is the answer to that question, because that's a human need. Those people are human. We need to. That's part of the government duties. Try to fit the need of the most vulnerable one, and this is the group. But I had to, outside from answering your question, I had to command the fire department, Chief Allen, who you heard last night, very eloquent. I think that they did a good job on containing that fire, because
only one building went down.
Yeah,
It had damage to others.
Tremendous work that they did. And I always, when I had the opportunity to say publicly, I feel very fortunate to live in Salem. And one of the reasons why is because the first responders are very effective, very professional. They are very, they really care for to save life. And that to me is big value. And I have 7 children. And when I go to bed, that I know that I got one fire station, like 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 7 houses from me, that's giving me a lot of peace.
It absolutely does. They did do a great job, and it's also evidence of how effective regionalization is in the fire departments. Lynn was there. We just had that fire on Norman Street where there were 5 departments responded to that. Well, Councilor Domingo, I think that we've covered about everything we need to cover today. I appreciate you coming in, taking your time on a Wednesday morning, the 1st of June, guys. The primary is coming up in September.
September 6th.
September 6th. There'll be 3 candidates. I do have to reach out to Eugene still, try to do that today. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
you so much.
My pleasure. All righty.
Great.
Okay. That's it, guys. This is William Legault from Salem Digest here at 285 Derby Street in the studios at Salem Access Television with Councilor-at-Large Domingo Dominguez, candidate for Salem State Representative. We're going to close it out now. We'll see you again with another interview before you know it.